Hey guys, Caesar here. Life in a true and vibrant missional community is an amazing thing to experience. It's something I believe we were all created to enjoy. But what does it really look like? How is it different than your current church or small group situation? Let me tell you a true story that I think will help illustrate the beauty of this life lived in community together. Good friends of mine, Greg and Mary, came to faith and became part of our community a few years back. They pretty immediately began to loop others into this life with us as they learned to live as full-time missionaries. Now, one of the very first families that Greg and Mary began to invite into their lives was a 16-year-old girl named Kirstan and her widowed mother, Juliana. They had a pretty rough story. Their family had suffered from multi-generational drug abuse, addiction, and some pretty heavy violence. Kirstan's dad spent years in and out of jail while her mom was a dysfunctional alcoholic. At one point, Kirstan said she ate nothing but meals from Jack in the Box for 6 months because it was the only thing that she could walk to from the low-cost motel that the family was living in at the time. Pretty tough. A few months before Greg met them, Kirstan's dad had committed suicide by hanging himself in her grandparents' garage. It was a very, very sad story. And eventually homeless and not sure what to do, they wandered into the offices at Network, where Greg now works with others, providing shelter and care for homeless families. Greg said that Kirstan looked like one of those goth kids, dressed all in black with long fortress-like bangs covering most of her expressionless face. And she failed the necessary drug screening that was required for her and her mom to get into an apartment. But showing them grace, Greg decided to take a chance on her and on her mom. And so he moved them into one of the two-bedroom units that Network managed. Greg and Mary started praying, and they looked for ways to get, Kirstan and her mom beyond the meeting table at the housing offices and to their dinner table at home. And it took about 3 or 4 months and several invites before Kirstan and her mom finally reluctantly accepted. That first evening, Greg recalls, Kirstan was very quiet, and her mom ate as fast as she could so they could just leave and go watch American Idol. They chit-chatted through dinner, but for some reason, Juliana, she started to open up a little bit, and she expressed that she wanted to be a part of a church. And they thought that was a little bit weird. They told her about the weekly dinners that they had with some of their friends on Thursday nights, and they invited them to join them with their missional community. So they started coming to these dinners with the community the very next week. For the first few months, they were pretty much just observers when they hung around. Quiet, kind of feeling out relationships, but not saying very much or entering too deep into their personal life situations with the group. Though Juliana was really a servant, she loved to bring food and help others. She was a little scared of being vulnerable, though, about her life with others. Totally understandable, right? But as time and many regular and daily encounters passed by, Kirstan and her mom realized that this crazy group of Jesus people were more interested in them being a part of their family than trying to get them to start going to church or to stop doing this or start doing that in their lives. They began to ease up, and they started leaning into relationship a little bit more. Because you remember, family was still scary to them. You could get hurt here, but they were beginning to trust. They were starting to believe a new story. At one of these Thursday night family dinners, Juliana really opened up for the first time, talking about how hurt and angry she was at her husband for killing himself, for leaving them alone, for hurting her daughters. She was crying as she shared all this, and for the first time, Kirstan moved from her safe corner, where she usually sat, into the circle of friends to comfort her mom. She never left that circle after that. Full of great insights and questions, Kirstan had so much to offer to the group, to the community. God and faith and family were beginning to become real to her. At one point, she mentioned that she was sorry that she had dropped out of high school. Well, one of the young fathers in the community asked her what was keeping her from going back and finishing. With a puzzled look on her face, she said, I'm not really sure. So after that, everyone in the missional community came around Kirstan, and they helped her pay for her to get her GED. It's a high school equivalency kind of diploma. Now, once all the pieces were in place, Kirstan ran with this on her own, and she did everything she needed to do. She was amazing. A few months later, at the age of 17, she completed the courses and walked the stage in cap and gown to receive her diploma. What a day. God rewrote her story from being a homeless dropout to getting her diploma and graduating a year before anyone else in her class. Greg and the others from her missional community, they were all there at the ceremony. And they've showed me a picture of her that day, hair long and flowing, in her tasseled graduation cap, smiling, just glowing. And her mom's there in the picture too, so proud and so happy. What a contrast from when they first walked into his office looking for any help they could find. Kirstan's bangs long, covering her eyes and most of her face. Her mom's face swollen from crying, wondering where her kids were going to sleep that night. What a change. What good news for them and for us as we saw grace and relationship, restoration, hope and action, all in the flesh. A true picture of the gospel. Words and actions, all very good news. Now, in so many ways, this is all of our stories. None of us have a perfect family or have been the perfect son or daughter or mother or father or sister or brother. We have all, at times, lived for our own glory and tried to manage life and relationships to suit our own personal comfort and liking. Or perhaps we've been sinned against and felt abandoned. We've found ourselves sort of on the outside looking in and wondering if things could be better or if things could ever really change. Is this how life will be? We all long for a more loving father, a brother or sister who will lay down their life for us, a place in a family that is safe where we can just be ourselves. We were created to live in grace-based relationships. That's why true gospel-centered communities are an irresistible call to return home. Our families, our missional communities, we represent the open arms of God and a place at his dinner table. This is not a lifestyle that we should live with others. This is the life we get to live because of Christ. The next best time to get equipped to start living this way is now. I'm here for you, and I'd love to help in any way I can. Drop me a line or any questions you may have in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.